I'm just about to jump on and do one of my pub evenings on Instagram, Katie's Arms Live, but I realised I've been owing you guys an update on DC and the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump, the 47th President of the United States of America. And I thought it'd be helpful just to kind of distill all of those big days into three main points. And the first point, I suppose, at a more general level, was just how different DC felt. And despite it being -3, despite there being snow on the ground, despite all of the fences and the kind of partitioning being up and all the road closures that you would expect for an inauguration, and then despite the announcement that the inauguration wouldn't be happening in person, so people with tickets wouldn't actually be going on the mall or the mall to watch the inauguration, there was something about DC. Even landing at the airport, you could feel it. There was this, it's almost like a sound to me, the fuzzing of like when you're near electricity pylons or something, or you can hear the hum of a speaker, if you're near a speaker and you just hear the zzz, electricity buzzing through it. The city had that. It was kind of charged, I think, with the energy of all of the people, whether they were there in person or they weren't, just fizzing with excitement that Trump, despite everything that's been thrown at him, at his family, at his children, at Melania, at the patriots that fought so hard to get him back into office, despite everything, 2 assassination attempts, he had made it. And there was also this feeling, a collective holding of breath. And I felt it absolutely right up until the moment that he was sworn in. I would say with his hand on the Bible, but it all happened so blooming quickly. The Bible was kind of there. But it was a holding of breath. Just because the way that evil is, there would still be a last-ditch attempt to stop this. You know, that there was never a certainty that he would be allowed to kind of get there until that moment actually happened. And when it did, there was this kind of sense of collective sigh of relief. The second thing, I suppose, compared to, say, the Biden installation that was horrific, legitimately nobody was there because we'd been told that if you were there, you shouldn't be there. If you were there, the military had permission to open fire without warning. So everyone stayed away, everyone left DC because they were all terrified. And the few of us that were there, myself included, it was just this weird, it all happened in a vacuum, so much so that you weren't even sure that it had happened. And even when I was in DC for the installation of the false President Biden and the fireworks went up and I was on the road and I saw them go up, I had people messaging me to ask if the fireworks were real or whether they were a fabrication as well, because everything felt like an illusion. And I was able to say, no, the fireworks are real here at the Biden installation because I can see them. But otherwise, it felt like everything was a fiction, whereas everything in the Trump 47th inauguration was bigger than normal, more real than normal, even though it didn't happen on the mall. It happened indoors at the Capital One Arena, or people watching on TV screens, or immediately people had watch parties. The second thing, sorry, I have got a bit of a voice loss, flu, whatever, who cares? Suck it up. The second thing was the joy. So the levels of joy were just huge on the streets, people being so sweet to each other, helping each other, that kind of feeling. But then the balls, I was very lucky to go to one of the inauguration balls. There's all these different balls that happen. There's a bit of wankiness, honestly, about them because people say, oh, which one are you going to? Oh, I'm going to the blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm going to the Liberty Ball. And the Liberty Ball is seen as better than this ball. And then I'm going to the Commander-in-Chief's ball or whatever. And that's like the Uber ball. That's like the ultimate ball. So there's a bit of a knob off around the inauguration balls. It's a bit like Top Trumps, which one? And I didn't have a ticket for any at all. And obviously I wouldn't have inferred that I should have been invited to any. And I really don't care about that sort of thing because I belong, you know, on the streets, on the pavements, on the sidewalks with ordinary people in bars or wherever, you know, wherever the scruffiness of something can be found is where I belong. But I was very lucky to receive a ticket at last minute for the Charlie Kirk kind of turning point ball. And I have to say, you know, I pretty much left my entire body on the dance floor, and I honestly, there's some apologies needed, particularly because the village people were there and they played In the Navy. And I suddenly thought I was a spectacular dancer and kind of host, I suppose. And I was gesturing at a guy who was very clearly in the Air Force and sort of, in the Navy, and saluting him. And he did point out he was in the Air Force, which of course, as an ex-army person, I did realise, but I found myself to be very funny in that moment. And I'm still slightly having flashbacks about that and feeling bad. The point being not about my dancing, but about the joy. That city, that audience, that crowd, that 20,000 people, the 250,000 people, just joy and a feeling of joy being directed. People messaging me from Texas, California, just thrilled. And then I suppose, and this was the moment that I lost it, which has now been seen apparently by everybody on the planet. And it is so typical, isn't it, in my life, that I do all these ballsy things that I want people to see, like, being in South Africa and trying to highlight what's happening to the farmers there. But it's the moment that I completely lose my shit and start crying on a sidewalk and suddenly everyone on the planet has seen it. But no shame really, other than I really dislike people who cry on any form of social media. So mea culpa. And also before, I really couldn't stand people who wore dry robes. Now I own a dry robe and I think they're fantastic. So a little bit of a learning moment for me. But regardless, I was very overwhelmed because I'd been holding it in out of fear that something would happen to Trump. And then it all happened and you could finally let go. All of the muscles in your body just went whew. And then there was an act of kindness in a restaurant where someone settled my check because they were, I guess, supporters of what I try and do. And that was it. I just completely lost it. And there was all sorts of bigness involved in that, which I can still feel now. It's why I don't have a voice, and it's the bigness of it, of a country now that has everything to live for. The golden age of America, I believe it. Everything changing on day one, signing executive orders at the inauguration party in the Capital One Arena, signing there's only two biological sexes, signing we're sending troops to the border, signing for ICE to be able to go in and get illegals and get them out of the country, signing to put Americans first, signing to put manufacturing first, drill baby drill. And you know what set me right off? The actual line that did it? You can buy whatever car you want. I don't even care about cars. I drive a shitty little disability Panda from I don't even know, and it smells of dog, and no one else wants to be in it because it's disgusting. I don't care about cars, but it was that line, you can buy whatever car you want. And suddenly I was overwhelmed, not only by that acknowledgement of all the freedoms we've had taken away, and not until you start getting them back do you realise the enormity of what's been taken from you. And then also looking to the UK and knowing that we're still being pushed down that, whereas America is being freed. And what that does is it makes the UK look ridiculous. Trump just ripped up the Paris Accord. He just walked away from the World Health Organization. He stepped away from the World Economic Forum. He ripped it all up, drill baby drill. It makes our lot look so ridiculous, and that is a joy. So my main takeaway is joy. My absolute clarity is that America is back. This is the golden age of America. And my final point is that it is a massive win for us as well, because Trump is very clear about Keir Starmer, about David Lammy, and about what's going on in Europe. Him and Elon are determined to bring back Western Europe as Christian countries that have free people in them. And Trump and his people will continue to highlight the idiocy over here and to try to make Europe great again as well. Those are my learnings from being in DC. Thank you for sticking with me, and I will see you somewhere on the road.